Hey gang, welcome back to Daddy's Garage. Today's video is part 4 in the Honda Civic rebuild. If you followed along the first video, I gave an overview of the car itself and the damage it had and a basic teardown. In the second video, I removed the core support and did a few other things. In the third video, I cleaned up the core support, fitted it to the car, and now in this video, I'm going to weld the core support to it. So if you haven't seen those other videos, make sure you go back and check those out. Let me show you what's going on. Now, if you've seen the other videos, you already know the process, but I'm replacing the core support, the right front fender, the hood, the bumper cover, and both headlights in this car. It had some front end damage that was above the frame rail, which is good because you can fix that, and all of these pieces are readily available. None of this stuff is original. These are all aftermarket parts, and they seem to be fitting just fine. I will point out, this AC condenser, if you haven't seen already, in the last video I straightened it out. This thing was kind of really twisted up and not sure if I was going to be able to fix it. However, I straightened it out. It's still holding a charge, so the AC still works. So in the third video, I also drilled all the holes in the core support. I prepped it and I painted it with some gold paint that I had left over from a previous job. All I wanted to do was get some color on this because, you know, black is going to stand out. I'm not trying to hide anything. People are gonna know this was rebuilt, but I wanted to get some color on it that was more correct with what the car would have had underneath here. And they kind of had some sort of undertone paint that they sprayed on these things, you know, underneath the chassis and everything. So this is just some gold paint. But what I need to do now is re-prep the holes that I drilled in various locations so I can get it welded on, because you have to have bare metal. So once I do that, get all that metal prepped, refit this back in the car, I'm going to be using this Yes welder. Now, I've done a video on this before. This is the MiG 205 DS, and I have not actually tried to do one of these repairs with this. I've done other welding with it, but I'm going to try it on this and see how it works out. So before I begin to weld, I wanted to make sure everything was clamped into place. So I've gone around and I put clamps at various locations, squeezing that together on that bracket, squeezing these flanges together. I also mounted the fenders again, just to make sure that all the bolt holes lined up so that everything was right. And now I'm going to get it ready and start welding. So like I said, I'm using this Yes welder, MiG 205 DS. It's got the power switch in the back. Now, the only curious thing about these is you have to make sure that you're on the right settings. So I know that I need to be on MiG. This is the argon setting, AG, MAG. And then the wire thickness, I am on I'm basically on 0.025. So I'm using 0.023 as my mark. And then you can do a purge of the gas to make sure that it's working correctly. So you can hear this. So it does cycle the gas. This will feed wire. So if you need to, you know, bring some out of the end, you can feed it. I'll push on that, and it pushes some out. Now, the hard part is figuring out what your setting needs to be, because this reads in millimeters. And if you cycle this over 0.6, I'm going to go up to 1, because I'm going to go about 1 millimeter thickness is what my speculation is. So that's where I'm going to leave the settings for now, and let's see how it welds. Now, hopefully I don't get in my own way by doing this, but sometimes you have to take like a screwdriver and press down to make sure you've got a good contact with the metal while you're welding. So that's what I'm going to do. And that's basically just going to act as a little tack weld for the moment. Sometimes you may have to massage these down just a hair, just to help. So I'll just tell you, I tried to use the other welder and I had some problems with it, so I switched back over to my Lincoln 140T, And the settings on this are speed is about 2, a little under 2, and the heat setting is at B. So anyway, what I'm going to do here is push down with the screwdriver, and I may need to massage this down just a little close to the edge. Make sure that it has good contact. We'll fill that. There we go. So I'm going to continue to weld all these and get this thing solid. So it's all welded in. I took a sanding disc and I did blend down the welds just a little bit, just to clean them up. And then I took a wire wheel and went over any of the burnt areas where the welds were. And then I took some self-etching primer and sprayed on top of all this. Now, you may say, well, wait a minute, you just painted that. Well, it's not a big deal. I will come back with a little more of this paint and just spray those, you know. But that was my plan all along, was to apply self-etch to these and then add some paint later. So at this point, what I'll suggest, there's several things that need to happen. I have to debate on whether I'm actually going to use this cable or not for the hood release, because I noticed that the end of it was broken. So I may not be able to use this, but either way, these things, you know, they follow the shape of the core support, and they have these little clips that hold things, as I said before, with the wires. So get those things out of the way. You know, you can put the wire bundle back up in place where it was. So that takes care of that. And then I want to test fit, or maybe even just put in the radiator and the fans and get those in place. One other thing that I have to address. I did not realize that this hood hinge, this is the driver's side hood hinge, it is too bent for me to salvage. So I had replaced the one on the passenger side, and I think this was maybe from Summit or something like that. These are like 10 bucks depending on where you get them. You may pay more, but you know, I ordered one of these off of Amazon, and it was like $12 or something with tax. So fair price for getting one of those. That won't be here till for a couple of days, so I'm not going to worry about it at the moment. I'm going to focus on getting the radiator in place and the fans and the hoses and all that stuff reconnected. So I've set the old radiator up here and the new one down there, as you can see in the time lapse. I want to point this out. Make sure you get these little rubber bushings. These go on the bottom of the radiator and hold it in the core support. So make sure you salvage those, transfer those over. Everything else I've kind of transferred, used the bolts that held the fans on, put those back in here. And then the lines, these were a little bit different shape, so I'm kind of guesstimating a good angle for these to go. I may have to adjust it later. That's about it. So I'm going to try to get this behind the or behind the condenser, and hopefully it all fits. Alright, I got everything in place. You can probably see in the time lapse. It was a little bit of a struggle just because of the hoses and stuff, trying to get everything inside this center brace, trying to get behind, around that. So like this fan is very, very close to that brace. So I kind of had to wiggle things and move some hoses a little bit, but I got it in and it seems to fit just fine. Condenser fits like it should. I got the rubber feet at the bottom of the condenser and the radiator. I did put on these two little brackets on the driver's side. This one for the radiator and this one for the condenser. Now on the other side I'm going to have a little more problem because I'm missing the rubber boot that goes on top of this post on the radiator. I do have it for the condenser. The other problem is these brackets. So I think this one I can probably straighten them both out, but the conflict is, I don't have that rubber boot that I need. So I may have to come up with something. I don't know just yet what I'll do, but that's something I'll have to address. Otherwise, everything's in place. The fans, it was easier to put them in with the radiator than to try to go through the opening. So the wire's all connected, hoses are all connected, clamps are on. Well, I take that back. I still got to put the hoses or the clamps on the the transmission line. That'll be easy enough to slide those up, get them in place. But yeah, it's come along pretty good. But I think that'll be the end of this video. I was hoping to get a little more done, but once I ran into the problem with the hinge being damaged on the driver's side, I knew I couldn't test fit the hood anyway, so I might as well just stop at this point. The next video probably will have more test fitting of the fenders and the hood and the bumper cover and that sort of thing. Trying to make sure everything fits before I actually put paint on it. But anyway, stay tuned for that. And thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Hit that thumbs up button. And until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.